everyone is really well today. So this one's a little bit of a different vlog, to be honest. So I've obviously been referencing quite a bit in our Homes at Heart videos about the fact that I've lost weight, I'm on low carb, I've mentioned keto and all these types of things, but appreciate that for those of you that are new to the channel, are getting to know us and may not know us in real life, obviously some of this is being said without any kind of further context as such. And I appreciate some of you that are watching the videos may be thinking, well, so in January 2024, I'd hit a bit of a kind of block in terms of my weight and my fitness and everything to do with that. And I'd just turned 34 and was having that kind of, I think those of you that will know, you know, those females that hit your 30s, mid 30s, I think you have these moments of realization where you're questioning, you know, your longevity and your fitness and your health and all of those things combined into one. And that was a bit of a enlightening moment, let's say, last January. So from that point I thought, right, I've got to do something about losing this weight in order to make myself fitter. I'm sick of being so fatigued all the time. My back was in bits, so my lower back continuously was giving me so much pain. Getting out of bed in the morning was a struggle. I just had absolutely no energy. And my job's quite mentally taxing, and having no energy physically was just not helping the situation. So, I think everyone reaches that point where you say, right, enough's enough. But the funny thing for me is, and what you all probably won't know, is that enough has happened about 6 or 7 times. So in the course of, you know, my early adulthood, teenage years, you know, all of that stuff, you know, this is not the first time that I've lost weight, but this time has been different, and that's why I want to talk about it. So yeah, that point kind of came, and then I was like, right, I really need to do something about this. And you know, when you hit that weight and you really can't physically do a lot, and it's really super challenging to even get motivated to start. And when I've done this previously, I've always kind of done the diet and exercise alongside each other, and I've always found, to be fair, I've always found something within the exercise that I found to be quite enjoyable, whatever that may have been at the time. But it's always been kind of the food that I've always really struggled with. I'm an absolute emotional eater. Every single emotion for me, no matter what it is normally associated with food. Be that happy, be that sad, be that stressed, be that celebrating, whatever that may be, normally tagged onto it, either going out for a meal, having food, cooking food, having food with friends, whatever that might be. So it was about kind of breaking that cycle, but also more than that, it was about my fitness in terms of being able to, you know, have a longer life ultimately. So the longevity thing was something that I had piqued my interest. I thought I need to kind of know more about this. So started listening to podcasts related on the subject, started to listen to a lot more podcasts related to health and fitness in general, because I found that a source of motivation. And when people were really hyped up and talking about it and talking about the cause and effect and what these little changes how they can impact you day to day and things like that, that was super motivational for me. And that's something that I've kept on with, to be honest, since I started this. But the biggest blocker for me was when you're hyped up and you're in that moment, you can kind of get on the food bandwagon, you know, you can kind of have the diet mentality, you can, you know, cut stuff out, you can limit certain food groups, you can be in a calorie deficit, you can track that and do all of that stuff. The main thing for me was this time, it was like, well, how can this now become consistent? So this has always been an absolute blocker for me, is that yes, I've always been able to, if I put my mind to something, I'm going to do it. So if I've told myself I'm losing weight, I will lose the weight in whatever means that may be. However, it's not always been about that. It's about keeping the weight off. And that has always been the struggle. That's why I've referenced, you know, this has happened 6-7 times over, where, you know, I've decided I'm going to do it, I'm going to lose it, And I, in previous years, for example, I've joined Slimming World. That's what I've done. And I've lost it time and time again. And I've had various ways to keep me on track to do that. At one point I was with a gym. I was working out 5 days a week. It's always been though one extreme to the other. I'm in that respect, I'm a bit all or nothing. So this time, whilst listening to obviously these professionals talk and things like that, I was like, well, it can't really be all or nothing anymore, because that isn't working, and that's been tried and tested over and over again throughout my 20s into my 30s, and we need to stop that and try something different. So when it started this time, it was like all about, well, what is actually manageable day to day? So as I said, I used to cut this and cut that and be at the gym 5 times a week. And yes, of course, in the moment, yes, your body changes, and yes, you might get the aesthetic look that you're looking for. But was it sustainable? Quite frankly, no, because I found myself back at square one again. Because what I would do is, when I have a goal in mind, that's easy for me to get to that goal, because I understand that there's an end point to that. It's what happens after the end point that's the problem. So this time it was like, right, well, okay, you're not going to set yourself a goal of losing X weight. You're not going to say to yourself, you want to get to X pounds, X stone, X kilogram, whatever that may be. You're just going to get fitter, get healthier, try new things, test things out, see what works and see what doesn't, and see where you end up. And you're going to do that for a prolonged period of time. So if you can hear moving around in the background, it's because Theo's on the bed. That's what that noise is. So that was kind of the mentality this time around, which even starting out in that mentality was completely different to previous times before, because there was a mindset shift straight away this time round, which is why it felt different even from the get-go. However, it wasn't that easy. So January to March 2024, I was motivated for the first 4 weeks. I was working out for the first 4 weeks, and then motivation slipped. So at this point, I was not on low carb, I was not on keto, hadn't even really discovered it, heard of it, had anything to do with it before. And I was just trying out various different exercises just online at this point. So I kind of stopped for a bit, got to February, end of Feb, into March, and then when you just have those switches where you're like, right, if you don't do this now, it's not going to change and it's not going to get better. So I think we can all relate to those moments of realization when that happens. And I can't remember the exact moment, being honest, but I remember it happening. And then me being as stubborn as I am, because I can be when I want to be, I thought, right, it's time to dig your heels in now and get consistent, because what is the point in you putting all this effort in Monday to Friday and not doing it on the weekends, and you're just not seeing results, and you're not going to get to see what you want to see. Obviously, as part of all of this, the weight loss jabs blew up. So first with Ozempic, then with Mounjaro, and the podcasts that I was listening to started to go into that realm. And I'd be lying if I said I hadn't considered it. But I, hand on heart, haven't taken anything like that. And that is a personal choice of mine. That is absolutely not against anybody that has chosen to take Mounjaro. I say, good for you. If that is working for you, you keep going with that. I have absolutely no problem with anything that anybody wants to do in that regard. Same with any medical procedures. If that's for you, then you do you. It wasn't something that was on the table for me. I don't think I was at a point that would warrant medical intervention, unless I was willing to fund that myself, and I'm not in a financial position to do that, or would I prioritise that, to be honest. And same with taking Mounjaro. When that first came out, the price for that was quite high, and I would argue is still quite high. And I thought, you can do this yourself. You've done it yourself time and time again. Do you really need that assistance? Because I am pig-headed when I want to be, and I am stubborn when I want to be. So why do you need that additional push when you know that you can do it yourself? It's just about changing your mindset that's different this time. So from March 2024, things started to get a bit more serious, and I started to take myself a bit more seriously. And I just want to be clear through all of this. And this is why I wanted to do this video, because I want to show people who are considering weight loss or don't know where to start or think it's too expensive, and this, that and the other, whatever those reasons may be. I've done this without medical intervention, without weight loss jabs, without a gym. I've not set foot in a gym in 18 months. And I've basically just done it for free, using the resources that are available to me and being a savvy shopper in terms of food and trying and testing different things. So I want to be able to share that with you all, that you don't have to be joining expensive gyms, forking out on personal trainers and doing all these things if you don't want to. So that's the key here. If you want to do those things, I'm absolutely not saying not to do it. I say go for it. If you've got the means to do so, I absolutely applaud you too. But for me, it was also a confidence thing. I didn't really feel comfortable with the thought of setting foot in a gym. I thought, let's see what we can do at home first and see what we can do with this and see what results we can achieve. And I'm not saying in the future that I won't consider going to a gym or even getting a personal trainer. It really depends on where my mindset's going to shift at that point. But for now, I'm quite content in what's happening. So overall to date, I've lost 76 pounds, which is 5.5 stone. And as I said, that's been done completely naturally. And to actually lose the weight, it was around in between 12 to 15 months. To get all of that off, and then from that point I've been maintaining, and for a chunk of that time, so for 12 months of that, I was not on low carb and I was not on keto. So this is relatively new, that started in March 2025, so a year on from doing everything else. So in terms of, you know, lifestyle changes and food changes, I did just cut out the crap, basically. Cut all of it out. I was still eating carbs. I was still eating relatively normally, but healthier, and cutting out all of the other crap that I shouldn't have been eating before, and which naturally made me go into a calorie deficit. And then my priority was to work on my fitness at that point. So I said to myself that let the food take care of itself as long as you're consistent with it and you know that your calories are less than what they have been. That's the main thing. But you need to work on your fitness. Because I was sick of being out of breath going upstairs, out of breath walking the dog. I would ring my mum when I was walking him, and I could hear myself that I was so out of breath. Obviously, like I've said, the back pain and all those ailments that come with being overweight were very much present. And those needed to be fixed as well as through weight loss, but also through exercise. So what did I do? I started with YouTube. And I've stuck with YouTube, and these people that push out these exercise videos are amazing in my opinion. They give you access to so many things that you may not know is available to you. And I didn't discover any type of weight training until November 2024. From March to November, I was purely focused on cardio. So for those of you that are not sure where to go, first things first, Grow with Jo. Search for her YouTube channel. She got me back into my love of dance. I danced when I was younger. It's always been like a passion of mine. I love to watch dance, everything like that. And she does these, and we're talking 15-minute, 20-minute videos that were to music that I grew up with, and that's my era, and they were fun. So they got me back into moving again, and I think that was the main point to begin with. It wasn't even about being able to do a press up or a burpee or whatever. It was just about moving a bit more, and seeing how that could help. So Grow with Jo was my number one YouTube channel to begin with, and she kind of kicked everything off for me in terms of trying that. As I started to get a bit more confident with it and back into it, and you know, I think the main thing with this is video yourself. Don't just take the photos. Do the videos, as uncomfortable as it may feel, even if that's just you in a room. You do each angle, front, side, back, the other side, and do a 360 rotation of yourself, and then do it in a few months' time. And I'm telling you now, you'll be amazed at the progress that you see. So don't just rely on the scales, please do those videos. You can take measurements if you want to. It's not something that I chose to do this time. I've done it before. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't do anything more for me by doing that. I can just say that I've lost X inches off my waist. Well, so what? So it was more about the visual so that I could see how much change was happening to my body for me. And that was just super interesting through this whole process. So, and I didn't do it from the very beginning either, which I could kick myself for. So if you are starting now, do it now. It will honestly make you appreciate how far you've come in 12 months, 18 months time. So once I got a little bit more confident on the cardio side of things, I stepped it up a notch. So then I found The Studio by Jamie. So if you search for The Studio, it will come up on YouTube. Now that is a lot more high intensity, but still dance-based cardio. And it was a lot more challenging than Grow with Joe for me. And it made me sweat. And it was the first time that I really started to get into the dance element again and find it enjoyable, even though it was so hard at this point. So when I weighed myself in January 2024, I was 19 stone, bang on. I am tall, I'm 5'8", and I can carry it to an extent, but it's too much for me, and it was too much for me to continue to carry. So moving at that level is also difficult. None of this was easy, you know. This was hard. This was I ached, I sweated. Did I want to get up and do it every day? No, but I had a commitment to myself that I had to. So once I'd been doing it for a couple of months and I'd got the cardio kind of a bit more under control, and I could start to breathe a bit more, and you know, actually started to get into it and found it more enjoyable, that's when I started to set myself my new kind of daily routine. So, and this is something that I still stick to now, 18 months down the line, is my alarm goes off anywhere between 5 and 5:30 in the morning. Not really any change aside from the weekend, but weekdays, that's the time that it goes off. So my routine then is to get up, whichever way around this is, I'll either do the workout first and then walk Theo, or the other way around. It really does depend on what I'm choosing to do. So that kind of started to come into effect as of kind of summer last year. And then I started to incorporate weights, but I didn't do that until the November. So in November 2024, that's when I got a kettlebell, just an 8 kilogram one, nothing extreme. And that's when I started to discover people like Workout with Roxanne. You can find her on YouTube as well. And then even more recently, and I hope I don't get this wrong, Caroline Gervan, who is absolutely a machine with kettlebells and dumbbells, and that's something that I'm still working on now. We haven't ticked all those boxes in terms of what that girl could do, because honestly she's incredible and so inspiring, with her, you know, strength and things like that. But the reason that I started to think about, well, maybe I should incorporate weight training more into this now, is because the podcast started to talk more about strength and longevity, and what impact that can have on your life, and you need to start it sooner rather than later. And what I was conscious of, and even all the podcasts that we're talking about, you know, Ozempic and Mounjaro, were all to do with the loss of muscle mass, and that's not something that I wanted. I knew that I didn't want to look skinny. That's not something that is a personal aim of mine. It never has been. I want to look strong, and I want to be strong, and I want to be able to move in a particular way that helps me in day-to-day life and doesn't stop me from doing things. And especially as I get older, you know, when I get into my 50s and my 60s and ultimately my 70s, I don't want to be sat on the sofa. I don't want to be that person. I want to be still active, and I want to be able to move in a way that helps me to do those things and doesn't limit my life at that point. So this has been something that has been on my mind, and it probably seems crazy because, you know, people will probably watch this and say, well, you're 34, what are you worrying about that for? Just live your life now. And I understand that mentality, but I've lived my life in a particular way since I've been in my 20s, and it didn't serve me well in terms of the outcomes that I was getting from that. And you know, got to a point where there was so much weight to lose and so much fitness to gain. It's all come down to consistency, and you'll hear me reference that through the vlogs that I end up doing on this subject. Is, for me, it's definitely been about quite a lot of discipline, to be honest, but most of all about consistency. I struggle with the word motivation because I feel like motivation wavers, and yeah, you're going to have days where you probably do get up and be motivated, but probably most of the time you're probably not going to be. And what you're going to do in those moments where the motivation isn't there? What still gives you the, you know, get up and go, to get up and just get it done? I think that does come down to a bit of discipline, but it also comes down to showing up for yourself every day in terms of the consistency that you owe to yourself to get the results ultimately that you want. Another thing that I've incorporated is steps. So I literally just got, you know, you'll see me wearing it in videos. It's not an Apple Watch, it's nothing fancy. I think it was 20 quid off Amazon. And it just enables me to track my steps. It balances out. So some days I'll be doing nearer the 13 to 15,000 steps. Other days I might be around 6 to 8. On a weekly average, it does balance out to around 10,000 a day. But I do really try and keep to that as well as the exercise. I knew that I wanted to get back into running again, 5k app again, and it was really kind of transformative for me, and being able to give me that baseline of fitness back. It wasn't ever really about running the 5k. I'd ran 10Ks in, you know, 2018, so I knew that I was physically capable of doing that, but I couldn't do that. I couldn't just get up, put my running shoes on and go out and do that at the size that I was. So I needed something that was gradual and that I could build up to, and ultimately there was an end goal to that. So I did embark on that last summer. So from November, incorporating the kettlebells, that's when I changed my exercise routine to be 3 to 4 times a week at that point. So before that I was doing 2 to 3, more 2. Fast forward to March 2025, and we were still on the journey, still not even considering low carb or anything like that. And then I'd hit a real block with the weight loss. And I just couldn't shift it from what I was doing. I was still tracking, I was still calorie deficit, but I was still eating carbs, I was still working out 3 to 4 times a week. But it just wasn't moving, and I'd been stuck for a good few weeks. So started listening to more and more podcasts on different approaches, and then came across keto. Not something that I've ever researched or been involved with before. And just started to find out more and more about what it involved before I even took it on. And then I said to Russ, right, I'm going to try this for 2 weeks. I think I'm really going to struggle. I can't imagine at all cutting out carbs. It sounded like hell. But I thought, no, let's give it a go, because you never know. And all of the testimonies from the people that had been doing it said that they had increased energy, the sugar cravings had gone, the mental clarity that comes with that process. I was like, well, you know what, it's worth just giving it a shot. Let's see what this is all about. So I did. The first 3 days and this is the strict keto diet. The first 3 days were hell. I was starving. I had the worst sugar cravings you can imagine. It was like a withdrawal from sugar, because obviously carbs, sugar, they're all intertwined. And even though I was being good, I was still consuming carbs that, you know, ultimately would turn into glucose and everything like that. And I would have still been having God knows how many glucose spikes throughout the day that I was just not even aware of, which was still contributing to fatigue and energy levels and things like that. So yeah, the first 3 days, awful. And then after that point, it was literally almost like a switch. And the cravings just stopped completely. And it was almost weird at first, because I was like, how has this happened? How have I gone from being absolutely starving in the morning? That would be the thing for me. I'd wake up and I'd literally be ravenous to the point I would feel sick. And I hated that, and it would put me in such a bad mood. And I needed to eat something, or I couldn't function properly. But I didn't understand what was going on there at all. And then obviously I kept on with that for 2 to 3 weeks in terms of the strict keto diet. So that is literally just meat, fats, high protein, very limited fruit, very limited veggies. But the results after 2 weeks at work, the change in my productivity and being able to churn out tasks with absolute clarity was just weird, quite frankly. It was so strange. Like, where you procrastinate in the day, that had gone. I didn't have any sugar cravings at all. I didn't even consider eating anything sweet. It was gone. I was full all the time, and even at certain points, which has never happened in my life, is that I'd forget to eat at certain points and would have to physically make sure that I was having something, because the high fat and the high protein obviously just make you fuller for longer, and because your glucose is regular consistently, you're just not having those up and down spikes that come from when you're eating carbs and when you're eating sugar. So it was super consistent, and I just felt so relaxed and content with it. So I thought, okay, well, let's just carry on with this. Doing the keto like that for that 2 to 3 week period was super restrictive, and hats off to people who adhere to that lifestyle continuously. That's hard, because the limitations on it are limited. So I just started then to research a bit more about low carb options, what that could incorporate and make that a little bit more flexible, and really started to understand that maybe this was something that I could actually work with. So from March 2025 to now, August, I've been on keto / low carb consistently. I have had my odd days where I haven't been, and I have eaten things with more carbs than I should, and I have eaten sugar. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've been perfect for the whole time, because I most definitely have not. Been transformative in the way that my relationship with food has changed now. Whereas before, if I'd started eating something that I wasn't meant to eat, I would then just want it more and more and more. Whereas now I've got into very much a rhythm of 93-4% of my time, I'd say, is low carb, keto based. That is just the staple diet that I'm on. That's my lifestyle. That's how I operate. The exercise is still there. So 4 times a week, usually Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, break on a Wednesday and break at the weekend. Dependent though, sometimes I have been for a run on a weekend. It's weather dependent and things like that. But really 4 times a week is the consistent level that I stick to. I have my little, what I deem as my home gym. You will laugh, because is it really called that? It's basically 2 kettlebells and 2 sets of dumbbells and a TV with YouTube on there. That's my gym. That's how I like it. And I can push myself as hard as I want to in those moments. Now we're in August, and I find myself at this static kind of 5.5 stone weight loss now, and I'm super proud of how far I've come. So I'm going to leave this one here. I've got a feeling this is going to be quite long, so for those of you that have stuck around and listened, thank you so much for continuing to watch this video. I thought it was really important to give a bit of context to the videos that you may see moving forward. And as I say, I hope this serves as a little bit of motivation for those people that may be considering this. Please do think about subscribing to the channel. If you're interested in this type of content, please do comment. I will be guided by what you all want. If you want to see these types of things and you find it interesting, then please do let me know. We would really appreciate any interaction with the channel. So please do like our videos, go back and maybe look at some of the previous vlogs that have been related to recipes and things like that, and obviously the meal prep ones, and then eventually there'll be some on the home gym setup and things like that as well. But yeah, I'm no expert, but I'm here to help, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. And thank you so much for bearing with me while I explain all of this. And if you do like this type of content, please do like and subscribe to our channel. We are in our early days, and we are really looking to make the channel grow, and we really, really do appreciate your support. So thank you so much for sticking with us, and I'll see you very, very soon. So bye for now.